Hey guys, my name is Glurmit and I'm joined again by Still Plays, and we're back with another GA chat. Do you want to get started with how your Grand Arena went last week?
It was a 6-3 season overall. I started off really rough, 1-2 the first week, 2-1 and 3-0. So I was pretty happy that over the course of the Grand Arena, I got incrementally better, learning new lessons and just figuring out how to react after losing some pretty important datacrons and then figuring out how to use some of the new datacrons in time. So by the end of it all, it was pretty good with solid finish, and pretty happy about getting a 3-0 week in the end. In the end, there.
Awesome. And I've watched it, and we know most of the people who watch you have seen it. But can you just give us a little bit of a spoiler about what?
So the match, 39.3.1. That match, my opponent, really good defense. My defense stopped him. I had some nice stuff on my defense with Tuskens causing some problems, Admiral Trench causing problems on the front line. My defense did its work and prevented him from clearing. So I thought it was going to be an easy one. I went north trying to I'll just clear out 2 fleets because his defense was really tough. So I'll take out the top territory, take out the fleet territory, but then I get to the fleet territory and it just blows up in my face, kind of like I think it happened in your match.
Yeah.
And so I had to quickly pivot, completely change my plan. I wasn't prepared to tackle this really tough defense down below with multiple GLs. But I got lucky with some matches, but it kind of came down to Maul, where I didn't have much left to go up against Maul. I already threw in a couple teams trying things and nothing was working. But then I decided to throw in my JTR swgoh team, just give it a shot, and I go in there, give it a beat. We're ready to use swgoh's second special. And I do have the Omicron on the redeemed ability, which I think is just criminally underrated because it's what makes the attacks function the way that they're supposed to. So I begged him to clear it. And then I used the ability one-shot Maul and was able to easily handle it from there. And then the next 2 matches, my opponents kept setting down Maul, tried it a couple more times. It did not quite one-shot, but basically 2-hit Maul, because what's nice is swgoh can ignore taunt, ignore stealth, so he's able to attack who he wants. And I made a commitment to Relic 9 him, and now I've Relic 9 him.
Man, wait, you've actually done the Relic 9?
Oh yeah.
Okay, hold on.
I did it right before this round.
Alright, well, what's your allo code? I need to get this up. Alright, let's see this R9 Ben. I want to see what it looks like.
Well, there's issues with it still, because I don't have it's the mods that I'm missing. There are certain types of mods that I'm still trying to find good ones of. Specifically the crit damage triangle.
That is nice, though. That is nice. How many R9s do you have?
I think like 2.
And Ben's your second one.
I think Radis and now Ben Solo.
You've seen it here, guys. Don't R9 JML. Don't R9 like Java, but instead R9 your swgoh.
The rest will happen now with the raid making things easier.
Now I went 7-2, and considering I went like 3-6 the month before, I was pretty happy with that. But we're going to be talking about it in today's talk show, because we're going to be talking about Lord Vader. I just want to comment on how this guy is so crazy good for me. Now, I know for some people he's not the best. So, my opponent took in Fennec, Grief, Mando, Bam, right? I had set Lord Vader, Thrawn, Maul, and they lost. They took everyone out but Lord Vader. They then took in Boba Fett, Bosk, and Wat Tambor, and they lost again, right? Because I had the protection up Kron. They then took in, right, and this is the crazy thing, after that, they then took in, if I have to scroll down to see it, give me 1 second, a JMK team. JMK, Cat, Mace, and guess what? They lost again. And then, to make things even crazier, they then took in Troopers at the end, because obviously they figured they had to do something, and they lost again.
Yeah, I've done that desperation move before.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say that, in itself, my god, amazing. Now, that wasn't even the highlight when you think about it, because I've also been setting my Tarful team. I've been using it a little bit on offense, a little bit on defense. I know we spoke about it last week. But this week I can actually see the defensive holds. Now, it held 8 times from the 2 times I set it. And just to give you some context on teams that lost, Hux, Kylo Ren Unmasked, Sith Trooper. Not the best team, but it's a hold there. Interestingly, Gas lost to my Zori team in 43 seconds. Just want to put that out there. How does that even happen?
She's a good character.
Going back to one before though, they took in Padme. They lost to Tarful. They took in Sana Django. They lost to Tarful, and they took in JTR and won. That's the second time JTR's beaten Tarful, so it seems like a pretty consistent counter. And then for the other round where I set it on defense, Tarful, where is he? I don't think I set him this round. It was round 1 where I set him. Okay, so in round 1... Also, I just want to point out, Lord Vader held to JMK Cat twice this Grand Arena.
Yep, I believe it.
So Tarful is here. Okay. Night Sisters lost. Grievous lost. Bamha and Chewie lost. They had to take Gas in to beat Tarful. So... yeah, it's not bad, right?
That's a lot, especially in 3v3 where you don't have the full benefit of all the other Wookiees. That's just a very promising sign for what he's going to be doing in 5v5.
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
really looking forward to this next week.
So
we got a lot of new things to learn.
Yeah, and I don't really want to dive too much into this because of time, but I will give you an idea of what I'm thinking of setting in the upcoming Grand Arena. So what I'm considering setting here, because I want to utilize Datacrons, and not my whole team is Relic 5 yet. So I've actually been considering setting Tarful, Clone Wars Chewie, Zalba, Vandor Chewie, and Mission. Now, Vandor can revive everyone but Tarful, but because I have the Datacron, Vandor will revive himself. So even if they go for him first, everyone else... because he's a tank, so he taunts at the start, and he taunts whenever Tarful uses the middle ability. But other than that, he never taunts. Now, he gains prepared whenever he recovers protection to max, right? That's whenever someone else is hit.
Yeah.
Now, Zalba is always going to be taunting. So they're basically forced to hit Zalba, and even if they try to go for Vandor, he's going to give everyone prepared, and he's going to also revive himself. I think that's going to be a crazy, crazy team. The only downside is...
everyone's taunting, they get stronger and stronger.
Now, the only issue is it breaks up my dash team, but hey, we're going to try it out. You know, I R-rated my Zalba in preparation for GAC, and my missions are 7. So anyway, that's kind of a recap of last week and a little bit of this week. So let's actually dive into this week's topic, and it's really going to be about Lord Vader. Like, is he actually good? Like, what do you think? Let's get this started.
Well, with Lord Vader, I think there's the criticism. I think is he's expensive, and what you get in return is whether or not that's a good value for what it takes to get him, and the fact that he's countered by Fennec, which is relatively cheap. Yeah. That's a fine argument, but for me, especially in the free-to-play zone and as doing roster reviews and looking at what people have, just a lot of players don't have Fennec. Like as you get into Kyber 2, it's much more common to have that counter, and if you don't have that counter, you should prepare that counter, especially if you're in any Kyber zone. But you have to have a solution, and he's always set on defense because you have to be prepared to know how you're going to strategize and handle a Lord Vader. And that alone to me signifies how valuable of a character is. He's one that will dictate your offense strategy.
Yeah. So I'm in complete agreement. As someone who has him, and I know this is a bit of a hot take, of all the GLs I have, and I have all of them at the moment, he is the one GL that I know that if I've had a really, really bad offensive gameplay, that he will get me 1 or 2 holds. Yes, Fennec is a really good counter, but again, if you have a well-modded Lord Vader, if you have a well-modded Royal Guard, you do need good relics, unfortunately. But as long as you got those sort of foundations in place, the Fennec counter does go down. So I've got the stats up on my screen now. 31,000 times Lord Vader was faced last 3v3, and only 46% of them were a win, which is pretty good, but still not as good as Zori, so hey.
Well, Zori is a newer character, so players are less prepared.
Okay, I was only playing that in as a joke, but hey, so many people rage commenting right now. So, in terms of the stats, obviously the lineup matters. So the most traditional lineup in threes, obviously, is Lord Vader, Thrawn, Royal Guard. 4,000 times, 60% win rate of Fennec. I think that's pretty standard. But when you switch it up and you put Maul in there, it drops down to 10% in some cases. So obviously lineup does matter. This obviously is something we have to think about. You know, just like we would set JMK with Cat, or you would set JML with JKL, or you would set C with Savage, for example. You would set Lord Vader with Maul. Now I kind of want to touch on what you said about the cost to get him. And this is the big drawback for me, like and for a lot of people, is a lot of Relic 8s, and if you're free to play, that is a lot of investment. And obviously the quality of the Relic 8s, you got to think, who are they? General Skywalker, good R8. Padme, I'm not sure your opinion on her. I think she's probably actually the weakest of the R8s needed. Dooku.
Yeah, I don't even use my Padme these days.
Yeah, same here. Padme's on the bench right now. So then we have Dooku. I think Dooku's really good at the moment, especially with Trench, who I wish I had up and running, but you can talk a little bit about that in a second.
No, I've got him up and running, yeah.
And then I'm trying to think. Oh, Arc Trooper, which Arc Trooper was a nice one because of the cam mission at the time, but now people don't really run that. I'm not convinced in Arc Trooper, but other than the R8s, I don't think it's bad, because what the Lord Vader farm is doing, which other GLs don't do, is really filling out other teams. And if you was to farm JMK and Lord Vader, you basically get a Separatist team, and you're getting some other teams along the way.
Yeah. And arguably, Lord Vader's the second best GL for the Krayt Dragon raid. Because you get a Tusken Raider to add into one of the squads.
Yep.
You can get Embo to prepare for your Jabba squad.
Yep.
And having Embo for Grand Arena is also the best comp for a Jabba lead squad. And there's a lot of benefits. It's something that I've realized that I'm super close to Lord Vader, especially because with that Admiral Trench Datacron, I had to take my Newt Gunray from Gear 11 up to Relic 5 so I could utilize that Kron in a 5v5 setting. So that just gets me another step closer, and there's a few other characters where it just all those little pieces are falling into place where it makes a lot of sense for me to get Lord Vader pretty soon. I
honestly will say, if you get him, you are going to... Because I know you've been kind of bouncing a little bit between Kyber 2 Kyber 3. And I can tell you now, if you had him, you're going to be solidifying your position. Because there's really, I would say, 2 or 3 things that really cement you in those higher brackets. One of them is having Lord Vader. Like, you will not see a top-end roster without him in it. Regardless of what people say, he's always there. He's a staple. And the others are obviously Profundity Executor. So I've actually just pulled up the data for 5v5. The win rate's actually lower, 40%. More battles, 47,000. Fennec does perform better, especially against non-Maul variants. She's as high as almost 90% on this one, but that's a solo Lord Vader. On average, it's looking at about 70 to 80%. But if you put Maul in there, it's dropping down to about 20%. So he's still holding. I think what a lot of people need to understand, when you see the Lord Vader trash and when you see the Lord Vader bad arguments, a lot of it is coming from the very, very top of the game, where people have God mods, where people have good relics. I mean, you got to think, like, if I pulled up this information here, Relic 7 Fennec, Relic 7 Bosk, Relic 5 Grief, Relic 5 Mando, Relic 5 Ban. We have Relic 7s again, Relic 8s, Relic 8, Relic 8. And guys, you can see all this information in the new GAC compare and comparison tools on .gg. You can actually see a breakdown of everything. And the losses come from when you don't have those relics. Like, Stillblaze, I'm sure you can tell people about your relic levels on your team for your Fennec team.
Oh, I don't even have a fully Relics Fennec team.
Yeah.
My Grief, Mando, and Zam are all Gear 12. So it's a very high-risk counter for me, where if Maul's not there, it's pretty safe of a win. If Maul's there, I'm probably planning on a cleanup.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I have to play it with where I'm at.
And I think that's pretty fair. So I'm just scrolling through, showing some of the losses here. And again, like, yes, Fennec does beat him. That is 100% true. We all know that. But for 99% of you who watch this, and I'm telling you, I'm guessing a lot of you aren't in Kyber 2, Kyber 1, and a lot of you may be floating around Rhodium or Chromium. In that bracket, Lord Vader is going to be ridiculous. And I can actually show you the data there. So if we looked at Lord Vader there, and we went to Chromium, for example, and I can look at Fennec and see what she does. So Fennec versus Lord Vader in Chromium, 40% win rate. And if we go down to Rhodium, in a Rhodium, 25% win rate, right? Chromium, again, it's actually 25%. I had one of the filters off. Bronzium, it goes even lower. So the thing is, until you get to the high ends of Kyber, it's not even as big of an issue as it seems. I think the issue stems from a lot of you will watch content creators, will watch Twitch streamers, YouTube streamers, and you'll see, us, perform these counters with good relic levels, with good mods. And when we win consistently, and it happens a lot, you start to get this idea in your mind that he's not that great. When in reality, he's actually pretty decent.
Yeah, he's getting holds all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm always looking at my opponent's Grand Arena histories. And at my levels, those Lord Vader players are getting a lot of holds, and the players with Lord Vader are usually the ones who are making it to the final rounds.
Yeah.
With everything else being equal. If they're missing a GL here or there, and Lord Vader happens to be the one they're missing, then that might be one of the players not making it to the end.
So another thing which I wanted to kind of comment on is we see him as a defensive tool, but actually you can also use him offensively. For example, if your opponent sets SLKR, right, a very traditional early game farm, and for a lot of people nowadays, Lord Vader's going to solo that, with or without ultimate, which is pretty fun. He can also solo some Ray comps, unless they have Ben. If Ben's there, don't try it. Unless you have very good Datacrons. I think I'm 1 for 1 on that. One time Ray just ulted and killed Lord Vader, and the other time I won pretty successfully. He is just overall a pretty good character. That's my honest take on him.
Yeah. He's a character where from time to time we'll see the community latch onto a viewpoint, and it's one where there's been an overcorrection on it.
Yeah.
Where it's like we saw before, like Beskar Mando.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
It's whether or not the expectations meet the results, and just because they might be out of sync doesn't mean a character's bad.
So this is a really, really good point, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about Malgus here. Surprisingly, now Malgus is an R9 on my account. You know, R9s are expensive, both in terms of in-game and in terms of real money, right? And for the longest time, I was a hater of Malgus because for around about 2 months straight, he just never held. And I was like, why did I apply an R9? Why did I set Malgus? I had this like just intense hatred towards the guy. I don't ask me why. And then I started diving into the stats more. And I realized that almost every single time he lost, it was to C. It was to JMK sometimes. And then all of a sudden, when you apply the data and not just use your thoughts, your judgment, you realize, okay, this guy is consistently pulling my opponent's GL. So they can't use that on another team. That's a win-win for me. And I think
if he pulls a GL, he's doing his job.
Exactly. And that goes back to the whole Lord Vader point. Yes, Fennec is kind of the outlier here, but when you look at the data definitely goes against what people believe, and obviously the data does not lie. Granted, if you're in Kyber 2, Kyber 1, maybe he's underwhelming. Maybe he's not doing as well as he could be. But for anyone who's not in that very, very pinnacle of the game, he's honestly just insane. I'd even go as far as saying, outside of the high ends of Kyber 1, he's probably the least counterable GL. He's the GL where you see him and there's just nothing you can do.